Welcome to A Change is a Chance. My name is Ryan Lowe and I am 11 years old and an incoming 7th grader at the Sacklin School. I made this podcast to educate and inspire listeners, especially young listeners. I do this by interviewing experts who can teach us about major problems in our world, such as climate change, overuse of plastic, institutional racism, and more. I am very honored to welcome today's guest. She is the founder of the Plastic Free Foundation, otherwise known as Plastic Free July. Plastic Free July is an amazing challenge that encourages those who commit to the challenge from using single-use plastic completely. Millions of people around the globe have participated, and the short and long-term impacts of the challenge have reduced the amount of plastic greatly. Let's give a warm welcome to Miss Rebecca Prince-Ruiz. Hello, Miss Prince-Ruiz. I admire your work very much. The upcoming July will be my 3rd year participating in Plastic Free July. And even outside of July, I usually try to avoid using single-use plastic.
Great. Oh, look, thank you so much for having me on your podcast, Ryan. And I get so happy to hear from people all over the world, living in so many different places and different ages that are doing Plastic Free July and taking the challenge to really make a difference on this issue, which is so important to many of us. You know, we all want to live on a cleaner planet. So thanks very much for having me.
As you know, I have a few questions for you. Why and when did you create the Plastic Free Foundation? Can you please share that story with us?
So the Plastic Free Foundation is kind of new, just in the last 2 years, but Plastic Free July, it started back in 2011. So this is our 10th year of doing Plastic Free July. And the reason that I started it is I was, I think I've been, like you, concerned about the environment from a young age. And what I was doing when I started Plastic Free July, I was working for a local county in waste education. And one day we went on a tour to a recycling facility. So that's where when you put out if you're fortunate like me and you get to put out your recycling on your curbside. So I went to the facility where that goes, where they not actually truly recycle it, but where they sort it. And so where I live, you put in there, all of your recyclables go into the one bin, the paper and glass and the metal cans and the plastic bottles. And so it goes to this facility where it gets sorted into the different types of materials. And then, say like with plastics, it might be sorted into the different types of plastics. And for me, Ryan, when I went there for that time, it just really blew me away. I wasn't expecting it. I'd been before with my dad when I was a kid. I'd been to the tip or the dump or the landfill, and I knew what they were like. But going to a recycling facility, I never really thought about how much that we made. I kind of knew what my household made and I saw what I put into my bin. But when I saw my waste with my neighbours and everyone else in my street and my suburb, and you see it all together, it's just like, wow, there is so much. And recycling is really important, and we need to recycle properly. But the most important thing I learned that day is, wow, the less I can put in my recycling bin, the less I buy, the more I can refuse, the more of an impact I'm going to have on the planet. So that night when I went home, I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to challenge myself. I knew there's particular difficulties with recycling plastic. So I said to my colleagues at work the next day, I'm going to go plastic free next month. Who wants to join me? And I didn't think it would be, well, 2 things. I didn't think it would be quite as hard as it was, because suddenly you realise plastic's everywhere. And it wasn't all plastic. Like I wasn't trying to get rid of my computer or my car or my kayak that I love to paddle. It was just a single-use plastic. So I didn't realise it would be so difficult, and I didn't realise that so many people would want to join me. But it's really has grown a lot since then.
It's amazing that your passion started from a communal environment into this amazing global one. Is there a reason that you chose July as the plastic-free month?
Good question, and the answer is no. the reason it's July because I went to that recycling facility at the end of June, so it was just like, yep, I'm doing it next month. I probably wouldn't choose July if I had the choice again, but yeah, there's never a good time, and it's always the right time, so it's what we're stuck with.
I've always wanted to know the answer to that.
Good question.
Has support in Plastic-Free July been increasing through all these years?
Yeah, definitely, Ryan. So when I started it, so I asked my friends Amy and Nabila in the office, and they did it, and we had some volunteers that came and helped us out with different events and teaching our community how to live with less waste and be more sustainable. So there are about 40 of us that did it. We just had a list, used to send out an email each week, and we helped. Like, I didn't have all the ideas, but together as a group, we had lots of solutions. And then at the end of the month, we kind of got together to celebrate what we'd managed to achieve, help each other find solutions to with the plastics we couldn't refuse. And people got a lot out of it. They felt good about seeing their bins be less full, about about shopping at local stores and going to the farmers market and buying more fresh local produce, avoiding packaging. And so we decided we'd do it again. And then the next year, 400 people joined in as people started to tell, their friends and their families, and maybe adults would take it into their kids' school, or maybe kids took it into their school or a group that they were part of, or people took it into their workplace. And so it grew from 40 to 400 and then 4,000. And then I think, I'd love to know how you found out about it, Ryan, but people started to share stuff online and on social media. So, and now it's grown to the millions.
Well, I hope that number continues to soar, as I can see that it multiplies by many every year. I think this year's Plastic-Free July will be particularly interesting because of the pandemic. Some countries are still in partial or full lockdown. Students are not at school. Adults are not at work. What are ways that they can all eliminate plastic use while at home? And what are the best plastic alternatives that you recommend?
Yeah, so great question. This is our 10th year, and you're right, it's not the 10th anniversary celebration we were thinking we were going to have, Ryan. So, but at the end of the day, look, our motto isn't about doing everything. It's about doing what you can. And look, where I live, Ryan, my kids are back at school, so everyone's in different situations as well. But even apart from the pandemic, the plastics in my life are different to the ones in your life, and everyone's also on a journey. So we always say to people, just focus on what you can avoid and don't worry too much about what you can't. So in some areas, I know some places in the world you can't even take your own reusable shopping bags at the moment. Many cafes won't accept reusable cups, etc. So just focus on what you can do. I think in terms of our food purchasing, for example, it's about, buying as much as we can without the packaging. It's buying, the whole pumpkin rather than one that's been peeled and cut up and into small pieces on a plastic tray covered with plastic foil. It's making simple swaps from liquid soap to bar soap, which has been shown to be just as effective in good hand hygiene. And something interesting that we've seen with the pandemic, in many places they're running out of things like flour or sugar, or nurseries are running out of seedlings because people are spending much more time at home. They've often got more time on their hands. A lot of people are struggling financially. We've seen job losses, we've seen big drops in income, and I think there's also this opportunity here to start to live a bit more simply, not to rush out and buy the one ingredient, that you might be missing to make something. Use up what you've got in the fridge. Learn to make a few things from scratch, whether that's using your wilted vegetables or your scraps for making your own stock rather than buying that in plastic packaging. Something that has blown me away is that, in both our countries, 40% of all the food that is grown goes to waste. And if we're not wasting food, then we're using what we have, using up, reheating leftovers, having leftovers for lunch, using some roast veggies in a salad, for example, then we have to go to the shop less. We're spending less money. We're creating less packaging waste and less food waste as well. So it's about doing stuff in the home and really doing what you can. And saying no to the unnecessary plastic, we're still using way too many things like plastic straws and that kind of packaging that we just don't need.
So you would rather have people do what they can and use their own resources instead of going out to just buy all these alternatives and things like that.
Yeah, and look, and I think I always say like the best people say to me, oh, what's the best kind of bag? What's the best kind of shopping bag I should buy? And it's like the best bag is the one that you already have. Look at we're not all about buying something in this year's latest stylish bag or colors in reusable cups. It's like use what you have, be resourceful, think about do I really need this? How can I make do with what I've got? And then when we do make purchases, let's choose things wisely and let's not be so wasteful. And I think if we think about it like that, there is always something we can do. Look in your bin, look in your pantry, look in your fridge. What are the plastics in your life? What can you control, rather than just worrying about what you can't?
I honestly never thought about it like that. So what do you say to people who just think it is too hard and won't give it a try? What are some misperceptions?
I think the misperception is like you've got to be perfect. That, it's great when you see people that are following this, zero waste lifestyle and they can fit their year's worth of landfill waste in a jar. Like that's great. And I'm not there yet. And I think from my perspective, the most important thing is lots of people do one or two small things. Like if everyone does one or two small things, then we really add up to have a big impact rather than just a couple of people doing everything. And when we do surveys around the world, 84% of people will say they're concerned about plastic waste ending up in landfills and ending up in our environment and our oceans. So people are concerned about it. They know it's a problem. So at Plastic Free July, what we like to do is encourage people to be part of the solution. So although, I'm motivated by what happens to the turtles and the whales in the oceans, we don't tend to talk about those problems, Ryan, because people know and no one's okay. Everyone wants a clean environment. So our approach is, here's what you can do about it. Here's some easy ideas. Remember your bags, put them in your car or your bike or by the front door. Fill your water bottle up before you go out. And I think if we focus on the solutions and help people, then we're going to be able to make the change we need.
So everyone combined together is the type of change that we need, instead of several people doing excessive amounts of things.
Yeah. I mean, we sure need those people, and I learn a lot from those people. But to get big changes and for, ultimately we need business and government to come on board. For that to happen, the changes need to become mainstream and we need to put pressure on them.
That's understandable by everyone.
Yeah.
Have you been able to partner with schools, camps or event organizers to use plastic alternatives during July?
Absolutely. And I think, my gosh, like I think, kids of your generation know so much more about this issue than I did when I was your age. Yeah, so we have hundreds of schools participate. July is obviously a challenging month. It's vacation in both hemispheres, so lots of schools will do it in June or August or, some other time. Yeah, but we've seen lots of things. So we've seen a range, and it's great. Like sometimes it'll be the students that take things on. Sometimes it's the teacher. Sometimes it's the parent. Sometimes it's the canteen or the cafeteria. And I think, we have definitely seen so many changes there and at things like camps and events. And whether that's, we're going to stop using straws or we're going to do a litter pickup and look at, what is the plastic in our environment that we live and play and learn in, and what can we do about those items. I've seen, lots of schools have, waste-free Wednesdays or a day a week where, everyone brings their lunch without packaging, at events, banning balloons or balloon releases or free plastic giveaways or setting up water refill stations rather than just offering plastic bottles. So it's really exciting to see all of those changes, and I'm so lucky to hear so many of those stories. And that's what gives me hope, Ryan, just learning so many stories of what people do around the world to make a difference on this.
It's amazing how many people would be impacted by this amazing challenge, as I said earlier. What is your long-term goal for the Plastic Free July Foundation?
So, as I said before, like I think changing our own behaviour and what we do is important, and I think we all have a responsibility to make a difference, and we can all do something to reduce our footprint. But ultimately, that we can't do it by ourselves. We do need businesses to take responsibility, and we do need governments to introduce regulations and legislations, so that plastics are valued, so that they're not just being used once and sent to landfill or incinerated or end up in our environment. So we need to. It's crazy, all of this packaging, like the polystyrene, the foam packaging that is easy to escape as litter and isn't being recycled. And so we need to ban certain types of plastic. We need to manufacturers need to stop making things like those pouches or the juice boxes. When you get that, like there's a layer of paper and a layer of plastic and a layer of foil. Those mixed material types. It's a lot of this stuff is technically recyclable, but it's not being recycled in our current systems. And obviously, with places like China closing, stopping importing recycling, we've got a real challenge. But one of the problems is, like, I've got a friend here in Australia who's got a company called Onya, and they make shopping bags and produce bags out of recycled plastic, but it's more expensive for them to use recycled plastic than virgin or new plastic. So I think that's where we need the government to say, hey, it's okay for you to make this plastic packaging, but you have to make it of a type that can be recycled, and you have to use recycled content. So I think there's definitely a role for everyone, and that's what we want to do in Plastic Free July over the next 5 years, is start to use this great voice of the people who have shown that they're willing to make change. And now we need to call on our businesses and our governments to listen to that and to step up and take responsibility.
Building off of that, do you think it is possible to get rid of single-use plastics completely?
Oh, That's a tricky one. I think we're a very long way off that happening. I mean, I think one of the benefits of plastic is, if you compare the plastic bottle to a glass bottle, it's a lot heavier. There's much bigger carbon footprint to transport that. But the challenge with plastic is that it's with the recycling and the fact that it is so light that it's easy to end up as litter even if you don't intend it to. And so I think, I think we would struggle to continue with our economies and our lifestyles now without any form of single-use plastic. It's more the way that it's being used. Like if you think about countries where they don't have safe water supplies, it is probably the best way to transport drinking water. But again, there's lots of things that can be done to stop that becoming waste. There's the bottle refund kind of schemes, or can we transport it in bigger bottles and can they be refilled so then they don't become single use. So there is a need to change, but I think we've got a long way to go ahead of us.
A long way. Is that a decade or a century?
I think we need to make real change in this decade, because like when I look at when you look at the rates of plastic production and the expansion of industry and plastics that are being made from oil, and gas from fracking, etc., like the production is set to increase something like 40% by 2050. So if that keeps happening and our recycling rates remain low, like globally the figures are 9% of all plastics we've ever made being recycled, we've got a huge problem ahead of us. So, if we're going to have any chance of fixing this problem, we have to make change within the next 10 years, absolutely. But having said that, this is a problem that has developed over the last century, and problems that have taken, when you've got something that's developed over such a long time, we can't expect to fix everything overnight. So I think the next 10 years are critical. The last 10 years have been critical in raising awareness of the problem, getting people on board. We all know we need solutions, and then there are so many challenges facing our world right now, and this is definitely one of them that we do need to tackle over the next 10 years. But I think in many ways it kind of goes hand in hand with the broader climate change debate, and not debate, the broader climate change issue. And it needs to be seen as part of that, and the way that we're using and misusing fossil fuels and our Earth's resources.
Your words are empowering, and your work has inspired many people of my generation. Can you tell interested listeners about how they can start in the challenge?
So the first thing to do is sign up for the challenge on our website. By joining in, you'll get lots of ideas and stories and solutions that we've learned over the years and from the wider community. And most importantly, you won't be doing it alone, you'll be doing it with other people. And secondly, my advice would be, don't try and do everything. Don't try and go completely plastic free. Choose one or two things that you're going to tackle. Because I think if you try and do everything, because it is so hard, you can easily feel overwhelmed, and if it doesn't work, you feel like you're a failure. Whereas if you just try one or two things to start with, and you find the alternatives, you have good new habits, then you feel good about that, and then you can move on to the next thing, and then you can move on to the next thing. Whereas if you try everything from the start, that can be really you can easily end up feeling disempowered and a bit disillusioned.
That's very crucial information for me and a bunch of other people. So I hope more people understand that. For someone like me, what more do you think I can do to help eliminate plastic?
Well, Ryan, I think you're doing so much already through what the choices you've made in your life and from sharing your concerns and setting up your podcast. I think you're doing an amazing job. I guess what I would say to young people in particular, I think it can be really hard, like particularly if you're passionate about it and maybe your parents aren't on board, or maybe your schools isn't on board, and you might be the only one. And do what's right for you, and don't ever think that what you do isn't important. And it's really, I think it's really like we have to live and act true to our values. And if our values are a cleaner environment, I just think we have to have a belief that what we do is going to matter, and every choice that we make is going to make a difference and reduce our impact. So that's one less piece of plastic that can end up in the ocean, that can end up harming wildlife. And by the just saying, oh no thanks, I don't want this straw, or taking your water bottle, or doing practical, like it's very visual, so other people see you. So when you're doing that at the store, or you're saying the other kids at school or on campus seeing it, or if you're just having a conversation, sharing with somebody what you're learning, other people see what you're doing, and it plants a seed, whether they even are mindful or conscious of that or not. And I think that is incredibly powerful, because I think it's really easy when you're so passionate about something to want to just say to people, oh, don't you know that, don't you know what can happen to that straw? And people get their backs up, or they feel judged or blamed. Whereas if you show them the positive thing, like I have written a book, Ryan, I'd love to send you a copy when it comes out in the US later in the year. And this girl said to me, she was out with a group of friends and they'd all ordered a drink, and she said, oh, I'm doing plastic-free July, no straw, thanks. She didn't say anything to anyone else. She just said it to the waiter. And then everyone else said, oh, yeah, no, we don't need a straw either. So it was just by her making that simple change for herself, the others saw it. So that then changed 8 people, and it started a conversation. And I think that's kind of more powerful than if she'd said to them, oh, you shouldn't take a straw because it might end up in a turtle's nose, kind of thing. So it's that actions speak louder than words.
Okay, thank you for that. As we march into July, I hope that many people have been inspired by Miss Prince-Ruiz and are beginning to stock up on paper, metal, and wood. I am getting ready for this upcoming month, and I strongly encourage my listeners to do so as well. You can donate and sign up by going to their website, and you will receive info from the Plastic Free July Foundation by formally signing up. As I said before, I am getting ready by hoarding plastic alternatives, and I hope that now you will too. This annual event was a small act against the plastic problem, and now it makes a giant impact with so many people joining in thanks to Miss Prince-Ruiz. So, thank you, Miss Prince-Ruiz, for joining us, and I hope that the Plastic Free Foundation continues to thrive.
Thanks very much, Ryan, and I really enjoyed our conversation. I've been interviewed by a few journalists recently, and I wish they all asked as interesting and thought-provoking questions as you do.
Well, that's it for A Change of the Chance episode 6. I hope you learned something. I certainly did. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.